This is Governor Larry Hogan, and I don't always have time to listen to podcasts, but I do enjoy listening to the Maryland Crabs podcast.
Live from a grungy kitchen table located in Annapolis, Maryland's scenic and historic capital, it's the Maryland Crabs podcast. With each episode, your hosts, Tim Hamilton, John Frenay, and the occasional guest will dive in and pick apart the stuff that really matters most to you. We're too lazy to actually solve any of these problems, but we can definitely stir the pot. From schools, politics, parking in the fire lane, to those horrible people who drive BMWs. And here with this week's episode, live from the kitchen table, Tim Hamilton and John Frenay.
Hey there, this is the Maryland Crabs. It is Thursday. We're back like we have been for the last 102 weeks.
We've not missed yet. We've come close.
We've come damn close.
We've had fights, but we've never missed. And we sprinkled them in with crab cakes. So we're 102 plus.
We're 102 solid episodes. And this is number 103. Yeah. And this one I really liked. And this one is a very educational one. Some may call it dry. But if you have been procreating, if you have any children that are getting ready to go to college.
I've done that.
You have?
Twice.
Good. Twice. So good for you. But if you have any kids that are going to college, if you're thinking about it, you want to listen up to this because I discovered this MHEC about a year and a half ago, and I didn't really know what they did. It's a division of the state government, and they give away money in the most simplest terms. They've got $120 million that they give away every year through various scholarships and grants and aid and everything else, and it is to students going to community college, students going to four-year colleges. It can go to private institutions within Maryland, private institutions within Maryland, public schools within Maryland. They've got programs for military. They've got programs for single parents. They've got programs for people that have gone into the workforce and they're older adults now coming back to get their degree.
Yeah, there was a 60-year-old third baseman for the Orioles, something like that,
yes.
or a coach.
Yeah. And he's one of their success stories that was able, the third base coach that was able to come back and do that. So it was really very fascinating to see. And actually, I learned something that there is a program for recent graduates in certain degree things that they've done, whether it be teaching and whatnot, that you can actually get debt relief on your college debt.
It's incredible how much that is. And I turn around, like $1.5 trillion of student debt that's out there right now.
It's giant. It's only growing. And that's something that Maryland has really recognized, that, you know, our students are getting out. And I mean, they're going to make more money than you and I have ever dreamt of making.
I don't know. The millennials have not. That's the first time it's ever happened. Well, actually, no. Gen X was the first time. Gen X, I think, was the first generation that did not do better than the preceding generation.
Well, this generation is going to do because they live in our houses until we're
we're sitting in our studio. It's got all your daughter's crap in it. The sound is great because there's nothing bouncing off walls, and it's because your daughter's crap is in here.
We got one.
Look at all this stuff.
One dorm room full of shit.
What is that? Is that a bike carrier?
That is a bike rack for me. That is mine.
Oh, that's yours?
But the rest of this is...
Get it out of her storage room.
Yeah, so what we did is I went up to Baltimore this afternoon, which is... Actually, no, I messed that up, didn't I? Because it's that whole magic of recording. I went up to Baltimore on Tuesday afternoon, and I spoke with the...
You just suck at this illusion that we keep building.
I know. Well, I went up on Tuesday afternoon to Baltimore, to the Nancy Grasmick building, which is the, Board of Education for the state. And I spoke with the Secretary of Higher Education, Dr. Jim Fielder, who has been there for 3 years. He's obviously a Hogan appointee. He's planning to be there for another 4 years.
He seemed very certain about it.
Yes, he did. And it was just really fascinating on the different things that they did. This is, and one of the great things that really made them stick out for me and said, hey, we need to talk to them is, do you remember ITT Technical?
Yeah, they went under and hosed everybody. Yeah, they went under and
they screwed everybody. And what they did is the Maryland Higher Education Commission, MHEC, turned around and they sued them. And to get their transcripts and to get all of the students' information. And they worked with the universities within the state to make sure that all of these ITT credits transferred in if they wanted to finish, in whatever trade they were looking to go into, to be able to finish at a Maryland institution.
Oh, that's cool.
Which is fantastic. And to give them, to make sure that these students aren't getting screwed. And they really want to give everybody the opportunity. So
I did listen to this because it is a better strategy than what I've been doing for my kids' higher education, which involves a lot of lottery tickets. Mm-hmm. And so far it has not been panning out the way I expected it to. So they're getting older, and I was looking at them thinking, you know what? Beauty school is not a bad choice.
And we talked about that. Hey, right after we hear about from Kegs and Corks and Severn Bank, we'll get into it with Dr. Jim Fielder, the Secretary of Higher Education for the state of Maryland.
Do it.
Don't miss the best event of the summer. Come out Saturday, August 18th for the Kegs and Corks Festival at the Anne Arundel County Fairgrounds. Get tickets now at kegsandcorksfest.com to begin the party at noon instead of 1 with early access tickets. Tickets benefit the Special Olympics of Maryland and include a souvenir glass, unlimited wine and beer samples, plus live music all day, including headliner Kristen and the Noise. Enjoy over 80 Maryland wines, 40 craft beers, incredible food, and more. Go now to kegsandcorksfest.com.
Here's to the teacher who spends her weekend helping children who need a little extra attention. To the soldier who missed the birth of his baby while serving overseas. To the EMT working full-time and taking night classes. To the police officers and firefighters working long hours away from their families to keep our families safe. Here's to you, our hometown heroes. I'm Alan Hyatt, Chairman and President of Severn Bank, and we know there are many heroes among us, men and women who serve without expecting anything in return, which is why we're honored to offer our Hometown Heroes program to educators, law enforcement officers, firefighters, first responders, healthcare workers, and military personnel. Whether you're opening a checking account or buying a new home, we're here to give back to you. Learn more about our Hometown Heroes program at severnbank.com. Severn Bank, here with you.
Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender.
Today we're up here on the 10th floor of the Nancy Grasmick building in Baltimore, which is the Maryland State Department of Education. We are speaking with the Maryland Secretary of Education, Dr. James Fielder. How are you today?
Great, and it's the Secretary of Higher Education because it is on the 10th floor, which is the top floor.
So, makes perfect sense. Now it's all becoming clear to me.
Yeah, there you go.
The reason that we're here really is to learn a little bit about MHEC, Maryland Higher Education, the Maryland Higher Education Commission, because quite honestly, I've got 3 kids that are almost all out of college, and I was, until probably a year and a half, 2 years ago, pretty much clueless as to what MHEC was and what it can offer to people. And you've just come on your radar. So what does Maryland Higher Education Commission, or can we call it MHEC? Is that a
MHEC? Yes.
Okay, MHEC's a good.
Yeah, that feels comfortable. Yes.
What is it that you guys do?
First of all, in Maryland Higher Education is an extremely exciting time. We're one of the leading states for innovation in higher education, with a focus through our governor, whose record levels of funding the last 3 years will continue. So our responsibilities in terms of the Maryland Higher Education Commission was created in 1988 as the coordinator to try to help efficiency, effectiveness, and to prevent academic duplication in order to get better delivery and to expand higher education opportunity to all citizens.
And, I know I've seen some of the, I'll say the advertisements and the marketing pieces that have been coming out here that there are with a dollar sign, 105 million reasons. And is that true that there's $105 million that's looking to help students or people returning to school? Or
No, that's an excellent point, and it's.
And is there a safe here, and can I get to it?
Yes and yes. The interesting way to say it is that when you found us about 2 years ago, I've been here 3, and this is like the bright light under the bushel basket. You need to take that off. The state of Maryland is top for innovation and staying on the edge of the economy in the information age. So we need every citizen, every student that's in there to successfully complete their program. To do that, what we've done is accelerate and to acknowledge that what we need to do is increase student success with less debt. And you being the parent of 3, that if your wallet
you got my vote on that one.
Yeah, it's probably been run over a few times on the road, and it's getting rather flat. But the key is the 105 number that you throw out, it's actually more than that.
Okay.
Because the scholarships, we have 16 different scholarship programs, which can be based upon need, merit. It can be based upon part-time, full-time, graduate, undergraduate, down to workforce shortage needs, from veterans through nurses, through teachers. There's so many different things that we do that are pinpointed, senatorial and delegate scholarships, guaranteed access grants that the Maryland Independent College and University Association match. So a student who's got a financial need can actually receive $38,000 per year to go to college. $38,000 per year.
That's phenomenal.
It is phenomenal. And this was a program we established 2 years ago working with MHEC-The is what it's called.
So, I mean, how do we find out about this? How do we access this money as far as students and parents? And I as a parent, it's like pulling teeth to get your kids to follow through with that.
Well, that's true. And one of the most difficult things is the federal application is a free application for student financial assistance.
And that's FAFSA, right?
There you go. You got that word down.
FAFSA?
It sounds funny. It's not something that lives in the bushes outside. It really is an existing application that a student needs to complete. Once they complete that at the federal level, it establishes the household contribution rate. It automatically is loaded into our MD caps, which is our academic tracking mechanism that's computerized. So every student then completes that, has a number and an assessment. And when you say assessment, we actually go in and look at 250,000 applications to determine is there need, is there merit, and which programs, if any, does the student qualify for.
So this is automatic. FAFSA triggers this to you?
Yes.
So if I'm applying for college and I've completed my FAFSA application, without knowing anything about MHEC, you already have some information on
We have, but it still requires student action.
Oh, sure.
And only it's about 40%, we're trying to get that number up, of students who start the process actually complete it, which is extraordinary. It doesn't make sense to me that there's money out there that students only complete part of the process. And just this week I'm dealing with situations where the students and the parents fail to report their tax income. So we rely on federal income tax, to use to determine need. And they haven't responded, so we can't make the award. So some of them lose a $18,000 scholarship for failure to submit information on time.
That's phenomenal. And you said that, you talked about federal income tax. So obviously that's a need-based type of a thing. And
yes.
You also mentioned that there are some merit-based.
Yes. Some of the ones we're just starting now and passed last legislation with the governor's leadership and the Senator Penske, as well as some of the other legislative leaders, was a promise program at the community college level. So it was funded at $15 million to get us started. It requires the student maintain a 2.3 average GPA on a 4-point scale. And the governor's just announced 2 weeks ago the establishment or the intent to introduce legislation on January 1 to extend that to 4 years. So a student then would be able to maintain a GPA, be an in-state student, be a resident of the state, and meet some qualifications.
Sure.
And have less income than 150% of poverty. They could get a full through 4 years.
Wow, that's powerful.
Yeah, and I know you've got to wipe your face. You're starting to drool. It's so exciting.
Yeah. I sit there and I look and I think of just some of the areas. We've got plenty of affluent areas in Maryland, but we've also got some that are underperforming that really just don't have the opportunity. And I think that a lot of the issues that we have with the undereducating of our workforce, for lack of a better word, is the lack of the opportunity.
No, that's an extremely informed statement that you just make. We've done some research internally which demonstrates the very specific fact that analysis indicates for those zip codes with the highest unemployment, the highest public need, the highest public assistance, the highest health problems, also are congruent with the same area of lowest educational attainment. That has nothing to do with race, ethnicity, gender, anything. It's economic.
It's pure economics.
And so that to attract a business and hold a business and help them grow, you need an educated workforce. There's very few things you can do right now in Maryland that doesn't require some computer skills. Think of steam theater. Think of the math. Think of the calculations. Any even of what we consider blue collar. These all require elevated knowledge.
Well, certainly. I was having a discussion with my son the other day, and I said, you're so fortunate to have grown up in an era of the internet, if you will. And this is the most amazing thing to me. I'm 56, to be able to say that, and I've got to say that the internet, probably along with like the car, is probably one of the most intense, incredible inventions. And I've been able to see that, to come from before anything. I mean, I remember one time I discovered some carbon paper in an office, and my kids thought I discovered T-Rex because they're like, wow, it's like,
yeah.
But to have the technology, and like you say, you do need to be technically savvy to do everything. I mean, we can do everything we possibly could want to do on a cell phone, which is absurd.
Yeah, I mean, you can think of it as maintenance, even of a slip clutch in a manufacturing plant. Hourly take a picture, screenshot of the clutch to send it to the safety group that can monitor whether the clutch is actually working.
Yeah.
I mean, all these kinds of things. You can think of the BIM being used for bridge safety. There's tons and tons of applications of the new technologies that are just getting started.
Well, you said you've been here for 3 years. And right. I know part of the thing with the MHEC on their site is a 4-year state plan for post-secondary education. What's involved there? And, I guess, what are your plans going down for the next 4 years, provided that, Governor Hogan is successful in his reelection and you are an appointed official? No,
I would have delete the if. Governor Hogan will be elected and will continue on this journey, yes. The state plan is required statutorily every 4 years. And so we put together a working group of over 100 people. So we had input from administrators, private, public sector, from faculty members, from students, from private sector people, from different departments in the state, with the purpose of saying, let's look at the last 2 quadrennial plans and determine what should be continued, what should be changed. And then put in there the overarching concern that our plan needs to be neutral in terms of race, gender, ethnicity, that every student has to have that ability for access. And so we push higher education at 2 different levels. Like I was saying, for those geographic areas, the need for broadband to get to those areas is for education. It's just not to play the games. So when you think of the easiest way to think of our state plan is increase student success with less debt. So the piece of legislation that have been passed in the last 2 years are meant to both protect the students from those bad operators that there can be in higher ed, but also to decrease the debt by increasing the articulation agreements between 2 and 4 year schools for transfers to be more effective, reverse transfers to be more effective, as well as scholarships tied to workforce. We even have programs that provide financial support for physicians and physicians' assistants to go into areas that are rural and underserved. So what we're trying to do is say, let's look at the state on an economic basis and where can we help everybody. And so the 3 right underneath the increased student success with less debt, access coupled with success through innovation. So those 3 things, and you think of innovation, higher education in not just Maryland, but throughout the United States is going to face a rapid change because the courses can be delivered online.
Sure.
And there's a proliferation. If you go online, you just look at nightly TV, you're going to see 2 or 3 ads from different out-of-state institutions that are saying, we'll come in and teach, and they'll teach, and they will.
Now, are they a big competition for Maryland?
Oh, they're a competition for any institution that is based on the traditional, before you graduate from high school and go to residence hall and live there.
Okay.
Because the percentage of students that take at least 1 course is up to 12% now. I'm sorry, that's not correct. Over a third. Those that have completed completely their degrees online is 12%. And that's going to continue to increase. So the competition is real. The institutions are expensive. Some of them are continuing to increase. And so the governor has required a tuition cap, which then triggers additional money from the state to offset some of that tuition loss.
And all this jumps into the 4-year plan that you're developing going forward.
It's already developed and done out, yes.
How does that assuming Governor Hogan gets in for another 4 years, how does that handle in the transition after Governor Hogan's out of office? I mean, when somebody else comes in, whether it's Republican or Democrat, they may have some different ideals.
That's an excellent point. I've been at, I wouldn't call it a game. It really is a career. Public service is real, and good, solid programs will continue to exist no matter what the partisanship is. So the programs that are developed effectively are for the population, for the citizens, for the students, for the families, for the parents. Those will continue. Those that are based upon partisanship should be gone.
Okay, so it's a measurable, effective program.
Right.
Will continue. How do you measure the effectiveness of MHEC's different initiatives?
As an example, completion rates, graduation rates, retention rates. By retention rate, if you attract by access, more students, you go out and you establish a branding program and you bring in 20% more students into your freshman class. What is the percentage that continue in the sophomore year?
Okay.
And if they don't continue, why don't they continue? Financial, academic success and transfer to another institution, but trying to determine what works. And then when you find a successful program, being able to place it, worked with other institutions to also pick it up.
And as somebody that does leave college,
right.
And for whatever reason, maybe it's financial, I can't afford. Okay, there was a gentleman that was running for the House of Delegates in Severna Park, and a college student at the University of Maryland. I said, how are you going to do this whole delegate thing? How are you going to juggle this?
Right.
And he said, what I'm going to do is I am going to drop out of school for that spring semester, and I'm going to delegate.
Right.
He didn't win, but he says, I'm going to delegate, and I'm going to take that money,
right,
and I'm going to reinvest it back into the school. So my college education, if my math is right, it would take him 8 years, but he'd be working 4 years as a delegate and be able to take the salary from that and do that. But how do you – so he would have left school, but how do you attract people to come back into school? And I know there was a story. There was an Orioles player that had and I'm drawing a blank on the name.
Third base coach, 60 years old, just completed his college degree. Phenomenal success. So there's a lot of students, for whatever reason, financial, maybe a car accident, maybe it's health related, maybe it's a family catastrophe or some kind of frailty that prevented them from continuing their education. Those that are at 75% completion, we've started a new program, and we funded the program through an RFP process to actually get institutions to identify those students and attract them back by paying scholarships to get them back. So the financial hardship is removed, but their time commitment and interest would still be there.
And then certainly with the addition of the online, I mean, you've got some convenience thing. I mean, I'm not necessarily having to go to College Park or to Towson or Frostburg or wherever it is to do that as well.
That's so true. The innovation side of handheld classes and hybrid classes, hybrid meaning that you take most of it online, but then you have to show up once in a while to the actual college and sit in the classroom and have a discussion. All those things are continuing to change. So the actual degrees, the dual enrollments, the 2+2, the P-TECH, the BARD colleges, they're all aimed at simultaneous and stackable coursework. So you're getting a high school degree at the same time you're completing an associate's degree. Well, there's no reason we can't be looking at even in the junior and senior year. What else can we do there through the advent of technology that fully integrates a pathway that makes it easier for the students to graduate sooner with less debt?
Right. You'd mentioned earlier about bad operators, and I know recently you guys went to bat for the people that were screwed by ITT Tech that just sort of went belly up and closed their doors. And in a nutshell, you guys sued the remnants of ITT to get records, and then you worked with the various Maryland schools to make sure that they would be able to accept the credits and accept the students back to be able to complete their programs, where thousands of students were just left high and dry with an empty wallet. Is that pretty much the
the bad operators. I liked your I think your scientific term "screwed" was a good use of that term because ITT was an example. ITT and other for-profits that are regulated, that are nationally based, that are regulated by the U.S. Department of Education. The U.S. Department of Education monitors their revenue. And if their revenue mix creeps higher, meaning that the federal Pell Grants become an increasing proportion of the revenue for the institution, and once it peaks at whatever number, whether it's 75, 80, 85, or even higher, it triggers the requirement from the U.S. Department of Education that institution puts a higher bond. A bond is used as like a letter of credit, as a financial guarantee to guarantee that all students could retrieve their tuition if the institution failed.
So is with the acceptance or the reliance more on Pell Grants, does it make seem like the school's more or less viable for somebody to put their own hard-earned money into it? Is that where they're kind of going with that?
I think there's a couple things that have happened. It's primarily probably in the last 15 years, maybe 20, but I'd say 15 or less. The tremendous influx in immigration, the first-generation students that have been attracted by these for-profits. The for-profits have excellent marketing.
Oh, yeah, they do.
And they reach out to a student. They say, hey, Jim Fielder, you don't have a college degree. We'll guarantee you.
You don't?
No, I have multiple. Well, that's funny. That's good.
I need this job.
Yeah, it's a great one. Okay, it's 2 doors down.
I on the 11th floor.
yeah, 2 doors down. There, you can rappel off the roof. But anyway, the aspect of the for-profits having marketing wing that do outreach to very specific targeted populations. Their intent is to go to those students and saying, we guarantee you a job at the end if you follow this track of education, and we'll pay for it through Pell. Well, what happens to many of those students? We have the reports, by retention and completion rates of those that drop out. So for a student that's all of a sudden gets excited and has a dream to complete an education, to become a phlebotomist, to become whatever the specific track is, they get into the degree and they're not scholastically prepared. So they drop out. They drop out, then they've got the student debt on their back with no degree.
It's their fault.
Well, nobody's
going to forgive the debt on.
No, and that's what happens. And so those students then are caught. And that's why right now the debt load in the United States for student debt is $1.48 trillion. Trillion, not billion. And it's just amazing. The average student, is graduating or finishes school with $39,000. In Maryland, is $27,000. So it's still a very sizable debt that a student who's finished or even drops out has to pay it back. So what we've done is require, through legislation and worked with Senator Penske and some of the other legislative leaders, to actually require financial bonds and guarantees from every institution in the state. So they have to have a bond equal to the non-Pell money, because if they close, the students are able to go to the U.S. Department of Education to get their tuition forgiveness.
Now, is this required of private institutions within Maryland, or private and public, or the bond?
For profit.
Okay, so it's for profit.
Right. Yes.
And you said that in their marketing they guarantee you a job, and that seems like a pretty lofty promise.
It is a pretty lofty promise, but for those families in tremendous need of a job and financial security, that's one heck of an attractive offer.
Oh, sure. But how does one guarantee a job for a graduate? Let's talk about MHEC. Are there programs in place to help assist a graduate? Let's face it, it's a competitive job market out here.
Right. Well, that's an interesting question, because one of the roles also of MHEC we haven't talked about is program review. So when any institution wants to offer or create a new academic program, part of our analysis is there need? So, we will reject academic programs when there's also a proliferation of graduates available for work and no jobs. But for areas where there's a tremendous need, like cybersecurity right now, then you encourage those academic programs to get started.
Okay, so you guys are actually guiding curriculum.
Yes, at every institution.
At
Public, private, 2 and 4.
I'll throw an example again locally to Anne Arundel County Community College. There's a professor there that wants to establish a marijuana curriculum, for lack of a better word. And It's just saying that with the legalized marijuana, we need people trained in growing, processing, distribution, and everything else. And that's something that the community college obviously is looking at. And that would be something that they would come through MHEC to.
Yeah, they would have to come through to. But see, I thought you were saying he wanted to create a course in grading. This was really great. This one makes you hungry. This one, I'm sorry.
That's right. That's
okay.
Just in case that whole Google thing or that whole Amazon thing goes wrong, we got Doritos in the back pocket, right?
See, the interesting thing about medical marijuana, needless to say, it's a nationwide push, and medical marijuana, they do need growers, they need technicians, they need people who are going to design the environmental systems to make sure it grows correctly. All those kinds of things is a need. So we do an assessment using BLIS, which is Bureau of Labor Statistics, that looks out 5 and 10 years to say, where do we need people filling jobs? And then we back that into academic programs. And then you use the academic programs to determine, is the coursework that's being designed congruent with the mission statement, which we also review for every institution to make sure that everything is congruent.
That's fantastic. I mean, you're not just this organization that's sitting in a building just watching things go by. I mean, you're totally reactive to.
On the 10th floor, they look so small. Sorry.
It is election season. I know you said that Governor Hogan will be reelected there. You've got a lot of point and counterpoints coming out across both sides of the angle from Ben Jealous as well there. Recently, you sent us a letter to the editor talking about Hogan's strides in education over the last year with, the Hogan-Rutherford administration and whatnot. And earlier on here, you said that he's just been such a strong force over the last 3 years in higher education in Maryland. What make the case? Why? What has Governor Hogan done?
What Governor Hogan has done differently, he personally understands and embraces the transformational power that education represents for every individual. The sense of hope of your future and changing your future through education. And then saying, okay, we know that, but what do we do about it? Do we put the money in it? Yes. Do we put new buildings in it? Yes. Do we put policies in? Yes. And those are the things that we're working on. And he truly understands the Jewel sisters of leadership, that you bring optimism because that's how you are, but you create inspiration. And by creating that inspiration, that's why students go to college. It's hope.
Right.
And if you lose the hope, why are you there?
True. Do you think, and I don't want to make it a leading, you've worked for several governors.
Right.
Who's the best one for education, higher education?
Well, my favorite governor is the one I work for right now. That's and all kidding aside, extremely focused. He understands that education is the center of innovation. It's the epicenter of changing things. It's taking the silos of business, education, and government and pushing them together. That overlap is the epicenter. That's the catalyst. That's the energy that creates us, the state of Maryland, being on the leading edge in the economy. That's why the cyber leadership, that's why NSA, that's why 72 federal labs are here. It's not because it's cheap ground. We know that. It's not because it's cheap taxes. It's because of our workforce. And that's driven by education.
Well, I think also that sort of drives into the whole Amazon thing as far as being a finalist in the Amazon search. I mean, they want obviously they've got some geographic things that they need to
right.
do. But as far as the ability for the workforce, and some of the numbers that I saw were staggering coming out of there, that there was, I can't remember how many hundreds of thousands of employees, but they're
right. It's huge.
Over $100,000 a year in income, earning and whatnot. And the fact that Maryland is attracted a company like that to do that is pretty impressive, I think, as well.
It's impressive. It's the basic economic development that you understand that the one-time cost of a building and capital equipment is a one-time cost. Your HR is a long-term cost. The lack of innovation in your workforce is a cost that you can't demonstrate. So you want to be where people are thinking of new things that are getting together. Like some of our college have residential entrepreneurial programs where they intentionally put young freshmen and sophomore together and let them create new programs, let them create new jobs and new businesses.
Do you think, and you're obviously focused on higher education, but I mean, we do need mechanics and we do need barbers and hairstylists and
everything,
boat mechanics and whatnot there. Does MHEC get involved in any of promoting the trades and careers that are outside of the higher education track?
Yes, we work closely with Dollar, Secretary Schultz, and Mike Gill, Secretary of Commerce.
Dollar is
Department of Labor, Licensing and Regulation.
Okay. That's one of those government acronyms.
It is. I'm sorry about that. Dollar is not the place where they print the money. No, it's and the emphasis on using apprenticeship programs and expanding it out of, steam fitters, plumbers, carpenters, electricians, to beyond that, to cyber, to the film industry, to allied health industry. Those are to attract the students that, one, they have to have aptitude to get in almost anything now. The Southern Regional Education Board saying that 69% of all jobs created in Maryland by 2020 will require a baccalaureate degree. That's fast approaching.
Okay.
Our goal is to get to 55% of the citizens having at least an associate's degree by 2025, and we're at 50%.
You're currently at 50?
Mm-hmm. Yes, we're one of the leading states. We're in the top three we're the top in terms of percentage of PhD and technicians in our workforce. So the support, the need there is the recognition that you need the plumbers, you need everybody. And the difficulty is when you get to an unemployment rate where we're closing in on 4%, less than 4%, that's full employment. So we need to reach out to the retirees, to those that dropped out of the workforce, and bring them back in, either through education or through some other means. And it's an exciting time because that's what keeps your economy humming.
Another thing I saw coming out of the governor's office was and I don't know whether it has a tie-in to MHEC at all, but whether it was grants or whatnot to get more pads and tablets to people that are incarcerated. And to get them. And I've had some conversations with people recently saying, can you imagine being in prison for the last 15 years and coming out and trying to figure how to function as we've discussed technology? Is there anything that MHEC works with as far as folks that have been in a situation like that have been released? Or is that just like anybody else could?
No, yeah, I mean, These populations are identifying are what I would consider the most vulnerable and the highest need, because the absence of time, as you know, you buy your iPhone, an hour later it's obsolete. There's a newer model. Well, if you're incarcerated and unavailable for education, you're falling further behind. And what we're trying to do is make sure that everybody has the tools to move further than they are right now.
Okay.
I mean, we think of the K-12 system. Some of our institutions are receiving students, and over half of them require remediation. So our K-12 systems, need to be continued, improved, and monitored, and say, well, how can we change them? And that's been worked on very heavily by Maryland State Department of Education.
How closely do you work with the K-12 system?
Very closely.
Because I know one of the things, my children started out in private school and they ultimately went to public school and they were behind. And each private school has their own little specialty and whatnot. And it was like, okay, write this little essay. And my kids were going, a what?
What's an essay?
The brief.
I thought you said SK.
Oh, yeah. That's a hot dog. It's a hot dog down the road here.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, they weren't strong in writing essays, and they had to catch up on that. I've heard other people from different schools would come into, and be weak in math, and that certainly would seem to be something that, with the coordination between MHEC and the K-12 system, that you turn around and coordinate that these these graduates in 12th grade, they're prepared to hit the ground running, depending on whether they go to whatever community college, whether they go to a four-year college, whether it be public or private.
Or whether they go into a job.
A trade, right.
Right.
So you do work with the K to 12. That number still blows my mind. 50% has an associate's degree or higher here. That's absolutely phenomenal. Well, what is the future do you see from your perch here on the 10th floor? Because there is no 11th floor, we learned earlier. But
right.
what's the future for higher education in Maryland?
Bright. It's bright in several different ways. One that, again, you already mentioned the K-12 system, creating that's and maintaining that sense of hope, that sense of spark in the children that are in the first, second, third, and fourth grade, their eagerness to understand that education can, in fact, change their life. It transforms a family. It transforms just a family first generation achieving a job through a degree. Changes just not the individual, but the whole family. And gives them a portal to look differently at where they are and where they're going. So it's very bright because the emphasis is, again, to get those students to graduate at a higher level, meaning when I say higher level, not master's or PhD, but we're doing that too, but actually graduating on time, 4-year, 5-year, not just the 6-year rate or slower. And those things we continue to be emphasized.
I'll tell you one thing that growing up as a parent during that adult period, people put the fear of God into me about the cost of tuition. It was like, how the hell are you going to pay to put 3 kids through college? And it was just like this,
right?
My ex-wife and I were always like, oh, how is this going to happen? I mean, I know we've got the different savings plans and everything else. But I will say that in the end, I mean, it's not that it's not a struggle because it is, but if you put your mind to it, there is a way. And certainly I think with the tools that MHEC has, the resources that you have, the $105 million that you've got in the room next door that,
right.
To really affect that. And quite honestly, you've got a couple cheerleaders between, yourself up here and the governor down in Annapolis and the lieutenant governor down in Annapolis. And you've got a very good support system to make that happen. And had I known then what I know now, I would have been a lot happier camper, as would my wallet, I'm sure, to a certain degree. What's the most surprising thing that people don't know about MHEC, would you think? What's the
accessibility? So we hold workshops with different institutional leaders from the academic side, the finance side, the presidents, to try to make sure they know everything. When I say accessibility, the access to information. So we're very transparent. We're pushing new websites. We're trying to get the information out much more broadly, so that it's like you as a parent say, well, if I had known this 3 years ago, we would have done things differently.
Certainly.
We want to get to those parents. We want to get to the counselors at the high schools to make sure they understand the importance of a FAFSA, to get these applications in on time, get them completed so that we can actually help the students. College Bound, there's Joe Fisher's group. There's all these different groups that we work with that are providing mentorship for first-generation students and students that are maybe scholastically prepared but financially not capable. And that's not because of their own fault. It's just they're in an environment where the money is not there to support college education. Well, we need to identify those individuals. We need those with scholastic capability to step forward and let's get them working.
When's the right time to start looking into MHEC.Maryland.gov for a parent of a child?
Sophomore in high school, at least, if not earlier. Because if a sophomore in high school discovers that they want to do X in terms of their degree and it's not available, and it takes 2 years to get a degree approved through an institution before it comes to MHEC, or to get a financial aid legislatively put through. So it depends on how much effort the parent wants to put in. If they want to wait until the last minute, it's going to be a last-minute application, and then it's going to be at the end of the line waiting list.
Right.
So we encourage everybody to do it earlier and find out earlier where your needs are. And then if you identify that you've got a 15% shortfall as a family, You can make plans for that. But if you wait until the last minute,
then you're scrambling to
yeah,
shake the cup on the side of the street hoping to get it.
And I have seen, I mean, of all the different people, a couple of years ago, there was a person standing outside of a Ravens game dressed in a suit and tie with a sign. I have a ticket, but I got 3 kids in college. Can you help?
What a great marketing idea.
Yeah. I don't know how he did, but it wasn't me. No.
I had heard back when I can't remember when it was. Anne Arundel was banning panhandlers on the road, and the Capitol sent a reporter out to panhandle for a week, and he made and this is probably in 96, 97. He made $1,200 a week,
right?
And plus a bunch of food and meals and stuff like that as well. They donated it to charity, but it was wow, okay, that's pretty significant. Well, I'll tell you, Dr. Fielder, I think this has been certainly an eye opener. When I heard about it,
I hope it's an ear opener too.
Yeah, that's true. That is true. This is a podcast. Thankfully, there's no video for me here. But MHEC, which is MHEC, Maryland Higher Education Commission, .maryland.gov is the place to go to get you started.
Yes.
And if you've got children in 10th grade, now is the time to get on there. If you've got kids younger than that, go in there and poke around. See what's...
Well, definitely, if the thought is that you want to be having your children go to college, then there's college savings programs. So there are these programs that can even start when the child is born in terms of start saving then. So when you get to the 12th grade and find out what college costs, you're not, choking too much.
as we all do. Dr. Fielder, thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you.
Thank you for inviting me into your office.
Well, absolutely. Anytime.
Okay.
You're welcome.
Can we go see the vault now?
Sure.
And that was Dr. Jim Fielder, the Secretary for Higher Education for the state of Maryland. Again, if you've got kids, if you need to go back to school yourself, if you're thinking about kids, if college is weighing on you, mhec.maryland.gov, mhec.maryland.gov is a place to go. They've got tons of resources and $105 million in random desk drawers up on the 10th floor of
bags with dollar signs on the side of them. I always think about a lot of these programs, these grants and everything, is that you have so many government programs and even nonprofit programs that people don't take advantage of just because they don't know that they exist. This just seems like one of those. I didn't know about this until you
that's what he was
let me
saying,
know you were talking to
so many
him.
People, go halfway through and don't take it, but they've got money to give.
Right.
And one of the challenges that they told me off mic was that they need to give it away. It's,
that's a great problem to have.
If you don't give it away, you're not going to get it again next year. So they're really making a push to make sure that they are giving it away, which is good. And I turned my son on to it. I said, hey, go check this out and see if you can get some kind of relief on your student loans.
You have a graduate degree?
I mean, no, I came real close.
Did you?
Yeah. I got tired of school and stopped.
All the women in my family, my mother, my sisters, my wife, my mother, or not my mother-in-law, but they all have grad degrees. I just never had an interest, but now I'm kind of thinking about it.
And now I went through too many years of school, and I went straight through. I didn't take any kind of gap years or anything like that. And I just had enough because I transferred. I got onto a 5-year program when I transferred colleges, so it was a long time, and I just had enough.
It's expensive now. We were talking about this off mic when we were listening to your interview, and I was just saying there's a lot of people that I know who are my age who have kids who are now entering college, and they're really questioning that return on investment. It's you're talking about $30,000 to $40,000 a year, and these kids are coming out saddled with this debt. And I was just saying that the previous generations, the baby boom generation especially, is doing what every generation does, where they're idealistic when they're younger. They romanticize that. They get older, they get more cynical, and they kind of crap on the generations behind them. And I hear so many people say, especially when Bernie talks about free education or what have you, and they're saying, hey, we pay for your education. We did it. We got loans. I'm like, yeah, but even when adjusted for inflation, the cost of school right now is so much more than it was in previous generations, and the job market's a lot harder than it was in previous generations. Mm-hmm. The baby boomers came out to a boom economy. They were sending recruiters to schools from companies during your senior year, and you had a job before you graduated.
Yep.
And now you're graduating with $150,000 in debt, and you're supposed to start a family and buy a house. I have a hard time, reconciling that.
It is. Well, I'll tell you, if Dr. Fielder or Governor Hogan is listening to us right now, because we had Governor Hogan introduce us here, I got a suggestion what to do with your $105 million because I just had to register my title, my car that my father left me when he passed away. from Florida here into Maryland. I had to pay $1,900 in freaking tax.
I had to do that when we moved here from New Mexico. I went to go register my car, and like, this is how much you owe us. I'm like, what? And you have to pay the difference between. It killed me.
I was livid. I'm like, really? I said, this is nuts. I said, the tax was paid for when it was bought in Florida.
Yeah.
Go after
It's
Florida.
a difference in taxes, right? I thought it was.
No, it's not.
Oh, I thought it was.
No. If you're,
I thought like you did like 4% in Florida.
For you,
and 6%
here.
here.
Would be, you're the same owner.
Right. Oh, gotcha.
I'm a different owner. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Bend over, John. Here it comes. Thanks. Thanks.
Is that on your license?
Go Ben Jealous. Just joking. But
Jesus. Didn't take much, did it? Hey, did you do the Annapolis Rising thing last week?
Yes, I did. It was, and I'm eating crow. In that I thought it really, and we discussed.
Well, you're doing it cheerfully because it was for a good cause. And we were hoping you're eating crow for a good cause.
Absolutely. I mean, I was praying for it to be good. I had every thought that it would be just a huge cluster F, and it wasn't.
I heard it went awesome. I was watching the live streams because I was out of town, but I was watching it all. I wished I was here. The weather was great.
Off of our episode last week when we talked with Sean O'Neill, I won $1.
Yeah.
Because they did not have 3,000 people, but they had 2,300.
Okay.
They had.
Plus, if they need more than that, it's going to be way too tight, I think, in that space.
Well, they had 900 buy tickets the day of, which was a higher price and everything else. It started off really, really weak. There was like 3 people when the gates opened.
Right.
It got to maybe 150, maybe 200 people by mid to late afternoon. And then the crowd started filling.
Yeah, well, because it was a long event. You know, it was like, what, noon till like 10, something like that?
It certainly was. I still think the questions remain is, did it need to be done now? Did it need to be rushed? Could it have been better if it wasn't rushed? And we still need to see what happens as far as the money goes.
Right.
I think the council is going to be hard pressed not to get behind it. And not
Ross will grumble, but he will.
But, the thing that's interesting is that, if the council does not, we may never know whether it made money or not,
right,
or what it is, because they're going to hide behind that Annapolis Rising LLC, which is an LLC that was formed just for this, and we don't know who the members are, and the Annapolis Arts District are the co-sponsors, and they're private entities,
right?
And they're going to say, oh yeah, no, you have as much right to that, and as how much as Buddy pays for crabs.
Well, it was a great cause. It looked like it went flawlessly. I heard nothing but good things. I didn't see any grumbles online or anything like that.
The other thing is that everyone was all worried about it being a political rally, and I
heard it was not really.
I thought it had the potential to. There were a few jabs.
I thought so too.
There were a few jabs here and there, but there was nothing. And Trump said this, and we must control. There was none of that.
But I will say, I'm not going to get a political rant, but I'll say for all the people who worried that it was going to be a political event, are people who I know who tend to lean right somewhat. Mm-hmm. And I would say I'm glad it did not, but also you got to call your guy out for the fact that he's demonizing the press every day. Uh-huh. So I'm glad it didn't turn into a political event, but stop your guy.
The best line of the night, I laughed. I don't know that everybody got it, but when Celine Sanfelice got up and just to say a few words at the end, she says, okay, I'm going to keep it clean. And for those that didn't know, Celine is the one that said fuck on CNN Live with Anderson Cooper.
And she didn't care either.
No, she gave none.
No, they were all. I mean, it was a bad. God, that was only a month ago, or just a little over a month. Doesn't it feel like a lifetime's gone by?
Yeah, it does. And the mayor says that he's going to be doing more events within the coming months to benefit them.
Good.
And he wants to make this an annual.
That'd be awesome. And speaking of the mayor, I just ran into him
Before we get off of that real quick, that road, that Calvert Street, was an ideal place for this venue. Access was great. You could come in off of sort of the Raul Boulevard side. You could come in off of Clay Street. You could come in off of that alley between El Chorro Bravo and the garage.
Right.
Ideal venue for where that festival was. The stage sat up at West Street.
But that's where the inauguration was too, right?
No, the inauguration was on West Street.
Oh, gotcha.
This is going, and it sits a little bit on a hill, so it slopes down toward Raul Boulevard.
Okay.
And
is it where that building is on if you're going towards Raul, it's on the left hand side. There's like that plaza there.
If you go past the Ram's Head from the circle, it's at the traffic light.
Gotcha.
You take a right.
Oh, okay.
If you want to get into that garage, you would go down that road. But just an outstanding. I mean, Whitmore Park was right there. There were benches there. There was shade. There was really an outstanding location for it. My only criticism was they put a sound booth in the middle of it, which anymore could have been put off to the side or be done with iPads and stuff like that.
But those guys like you to see them doing all that stuff. Those sound engineers.
Yeah.
They like you watching them.
Well, they could have elevated it. They could have put it up.
They do the thing where they're holding they're not even wearing the cans. They're holding one up to one ear and they're fooling with the board.
Yeah, scratching on the records. But
I wish I could do that.
All in all, it was a great event. I hope they raised a ton of money, and hopefully we'll find out soon how much they did.
And I hope they do it annually. And, you know, it's. I'm glad to see everyone pulled together. I really am.
Yep.
It was awesome. And so I came here since you've already torn down the fourth wall. So it is Tuesday, and today was the opening day of the Market House. And I went down. I had to drop my son off, and I was going to meet you here.
Oh, that Market House sucks.
So it's awesome. So it was 10 till 6. I thought, well, I just rush in real quick. I was there till 6:30, and it was still packed. It was absolutely packed still. I tell you what, I am super impressed. I think they nailed it.
I heard the mayor had an all hands meeting at City Hall today and said, "All right, mates, get down to the Market House if you want your job tomorrow."
It was packed and everyone was having a good time. I checked out the menus. The food looks great and the prices were great. It was pretty awesome. And I'm going to call out Ward 1. Ward 1, you freaking liars. Here's the thing. They've got fresh produce. They got meat. They have cheeses. They have everything that you guys have been saying for years that you wish that they had. Everyone's been saying this for years. So we want it like it used to be when Rookies was there, where you could get fresh produce and meat and cheeses. They have all that stuff. If you don't start buying that stuff, you are all freaking hypocritical liars. I'm calling you out, Ward 1.
Right now. You've been told. But
yeah, what are they going to do?
And I will say the pricing.
Throw their Sperry's at me?
Yeah. The pricing is, it's not cheap. It's not.
I didn't think it was that bad.
It's not old Market House cheap.
Well, no, I mean,
it's very fair. I do think. I mean, the paninis were like in the $7 to $9 range. There was the burgers were the $5 to $6. So I mean, it was not. I mean,
and the hot dogs. And still, I'm going to Pips. Yep. But so I will never cheat.
Don't go to the Market House for hot dogs.
No, you go to Pips. But that said, I saw they have these personal pizzas. I will just say there's a place downtown nearby that I love that sells great sandwiches. Mm-hmm. And those sandwiches are around $12 to $13 a piece. Right. And they're awesome. But it's ridiculous how expensive they are. So I don't want them to impact their business, but I'm just saying that when we look at the prices at the Market House, none of those prices even raise an eyebrow.
Well, they're not competing with the sandwiches either. They don't sell sandwiches.
No, they had the paninis, they had pizzas, they had burgers.
They got charcuterie.
God, you too. And then they had the pokey, or what are they called?
They got pokes.
Oh, is that what that is?
Yeah.
I'm not familiar with that.
And, quinoa, and they've got a fantasy burger or something like that. Mm-hmm. Basically, it has no meat in it. So they've got a
stupid burger.
They've got vegan options.
Now, so they had the bar there.
Wine, beer.
Yeah, so they had the bar there.
Thank you guys for not stealing my logo.
Yeah. And, well, there's a ton of seating. Absolutely ton. So I was sitting there and I was talking to Jody and I was sitting next to Gavin. I'm just name dropping here. And the beer was good because it's all craft beer. My only complaint was that I ordered the beer, and it's the first day, so I'm going to take it easy on them. But the beer was, $7.50 for a craft beer. Okay, that's fine. But the mug or the glass was warm, like it was like it came out of the dishwasher or something. That's my only problem. The beer was great. The staff was great. Everything was fine. So I'm really nitpicking. But I'm telling you, when Midnight Madness rolls around and the parade of lights,
grand
and everything,
illumination,
that's where I'm going to be. I'm going to be having a beer, just sitting in there, watching it all happen. I really think that they nailed it.
I think so.
I'm not being a cheerleader.
This I thought was going to be the best one. And, one thing, they are open on, I'm going to say it's a soft opening now, if you will. Right. They're calling it an opening for the locals, but it's 11
And that's what he's aiming for. Jody said that they're looking for the locals.
It's 11 a.m. to 6 p.m., probably for the first week and a half to 2 weeks. So when you're hearing this, it's going to be open 11 to 6. If you go in, please be gentle with the staff.
Yeah.
I mean, they are brand new here. This is the first time.
They're very enthusiastic, very young. They were giving it their all, and they did a great job.
And because of some last minute BS with the city, that staff has been hired for pretty close to a month without being able to work.
And but the setup is great. The lights are great. The tables are great. They have all the high top tables, the low top tables. It's awesome.
Yep.
I am very impressed.
Yep. The suggestions I gave them is to put a sound system in, because I saw a presentation there where they had a screen. I said, put a sound system in and put a screen that can drop out of the ceiling.
That'd be cool, right?
Just to have, if you have a community meeting, if you have a Ward 1 residents
cool.
meeting, or if you have anybody that wants, because it's supposed to be a centerpiece for there. Maybe the CVB wants to come down and put on a thing for something or other. Maybe we need another water, sea level rise thing. It might be a good location to have that. The presentation I saw there had real crappy sound. So, drop another $500 or $1,000 into some decent speakers and a microphone set. And, a screen, it'd be great.
Well, it looked good. The food looked great. The beer, the wine, everything's there.
I'm looking for it. I'm going to go down there tomorrow.
If they can't survive through this, then sell it.
Fire up the bulldozers.
Because it's done. This is the best incarnation I've seen. And I will tell you, I will actually defend the previous incarnations for the most part. They were not bad. I think that they got an unfair shake. I don't know why they weren't successful. I think there were some improvements that could have been made. There were some boneheaded things that got done, but I don't think they were bad. This nails it. It really does.
Right. And one of the beautiful things, too, is that when you briefly mentioned about the market and calling out Ward 1, is that I think that they probably don't have any thoughts that Ward 1 will not support the market.
Right.
But they have a fresh market. So if they need lettuce for a burger,
right,
they go over to their fresh market and they get lettuce. If they need a tomato, they go get a tomato and they chop it up and they use the tomato. So they're actually provisioning the food that they're serving you right from their own very market.
Right. Exactly. So nothing's going to waste. If they're not selling it, they're just going through the kitchen. That's the best part of it. And that's what Jody said tonight. He goes, we have steaks over there. If the steaks do well, we're going to carry more steaks. If they don't do well, we're going to replace it with something else. He goes, it's all a big experiment, but we have the flexibility to do that.
Right.
So I'm excited. I've got to be honest with you. If I lived downtown at Ward 1, I would go, like after work, I tell my wife, I'm like, hey, let's go grab something to eat and a
glass
drink.
of wine and a cheeseburger.
I would absolutely do that. It's better. I mean, nothing against the bars down there, but you're stuck in the bar doing it. It's open air. You're looking out at the Market Square. You're looking out at Ego Alley. I do that
and
all the time.
All of the crap from Pennsylvania that's floating in Ego Alley and everything else.
I said that on Jess Packler's. She posted something. She didn't get mad at me for once, but I just said something like, living below Pennsylvania, the Conowingo Dam, it's like living below someone whose toilet empties into your apartment. Yeah. Just every time they flush upstairs, your living room floods.
Right. But so congratulations to the Market House, to Joe and Michelle and Jody. I think I really thought that this was going to be a good thing, and it's they dropped $600,000 into it.
Yeah, we're not getting paid for this. I paid for my beer tonight, and I tipped well.
And they're 3 months late, but it is open.
Yep. Go check it out.
Cheers to that.
And they're aiming for the locals. So that's you guys. We're all locals. So get down there. Support them.
Right. That's about it we got, right?
Yep.
Make sure that you give us a recommendation to not only on iTunes or wherever you're listening to us, but to your friends and your coworkers and everything else. Let them know about the Maryland Crabs podcast.
Yeah, we know we don't hit it out of the park every time, but, give us a shot. We're not getting paid.
Yeah. But let us know about it. If you've got any thoughts or suggestions about what we should talk about, if you'd like to come on and be a guest, we're getting kind of bored with Alex Pline and Sean O'Neill.
Yeah, and Satchel, he's one of our listeners. Satchel emailed us a while ago. We've neglected you, Satchel. And he's also annoyed whenever we talk about Annapolis stuff. He's over in Prince George's County, I think.
Yeah, so I mean, we can do a phone if we want. It's we don't like to. We'd rather do it face to face and have a beer and clink glasses and look at something. And you had some kind of cockamamie idea that you were trying to explain to me earlier this week, but we don't know what that's all about.
It was a good idea, but then you were in one of your moods, so I'm like, I'm not going to get into that thing where you're shooting down every idea. So I ejected, and I thought I'll save it for later. I do have an idea, though. It's a good idea. It's not a podcast idea per se. We'll talk about it, but it's going to be good.
Breaking news: Tim has an idea, and it's a good one.
It's a good one. It's a sober one. But and John won't mention it, but you got to listen to his podcast, the Annapolis Daily Briefing. I actually do listen to it every morning, and my wife listens to it every morning when she's getting ready. So the two of us do it, so we don't have to talk to each other. We just listen to John's dulcet tones. So it's the Annapolis Daily Briefing, and we were arguing about this before. I said that he has to push that more on Alexa because that's how I listen to it. I listen to it on Alexa, either in the bedroom as I'm getting ready or on my phone. I have the Alexa app and I listen on the way to work because I don't have to open my podcast app and listen. But if you do, it's fine too.
But you can get it anywhere.
But it's a 8-9 minute podcast. You get the news for the day, you get your weather, and you're out. It's awesome.
Yeah, tune into it for the weather from around because the guy's local. He's in Cape.
He nailed it. Yeah,
Cape St. Clair, and Annapolis is really a funky area to predict because you've got the bay, the winds, 95.
I listen to him and Dark Skies. Those are my two sources.
Are the ones that really nail it pretty well. So George does a very good job on that. That's about it. We have no clue what we're doing next week.
We have a little idea, but yeah.
Oh, we do?
Yeah.
What is it?
You called him.
Huh?
I'm not telling.
Okay. Well, I guess I'll find out next week.
Yeah.
Like us, if you need to get in touch with us, info@themarylandcrabs.com. MD Crabs Podcast is on Twitter. The Maryland Crabs Podcast, a couple places on Facebook. We love to hear from you. Suggestions, whatever.
I would say criticism, but that's a lie. Keep your criticism to yourself.
If you got any critical things, send them to Tim.
Shut up.
See you next week.
This has been the Maryland Crabs Podcast with Tim Hamilton and John Fernay. Sure to follow them in all the regular places, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and online at themarylandcrabs.com. Take a moment to rate us on iTunes. Now, get the hell out of my kitchen. Seriously, go!
You're still here? It's over. Go home.